It is very hot here in Israel. And you know what else is hot? Ben & Jerry's ice cream. Yes, that is right. Not only have they decided to stop selling their ice cream to Jews, in the process, they're actually hurting Palestinians and maybe supporting terrorism. All this and a whole lot more right here on the Joshua and Caleb Report.
In a world plagued with anti-Israel propaganda, Paul Yavel presents the Joshua and Caleb Report, a positive voice of truth straight from Israel's heartland.
In a world of negativity and fake news, every Christian should be connected to the life and positivity that Israel brings to the world. Guys, welcome back. It's the Joshua and Caleb Report, and we've got a lot to talk about.
Soon to be.
Yeah, don't forget.
The Israel guys.
The Israel guys coming out.
Yes.
That's August 11th. Go ahead, guys. If you're not subscribed, do it right now. I'm talking about cutting-edge content. Literally, we're sworn to secrecy on this, but this week we're going out. We're not telling you where. But I'm telling you guys, do stay tuned because we got some incredible leftist myths that need to be busted. We've got adventure shows that need to be done. There's many stories that are not told that I'm telling you, it's got to be told, Luke, and we're the ones for the job. So, guys, if you're not subscribed, do it. I mean, right now, go ahead, just subscribe.
That's right. And the reason is because the very next video that comes out on this channel is going to be when the channel is actually no longer called the Joshua and Caleb Network. It is going to be called the Israel Guys.
That's right.
So don't panic when you come back next week and you realize that that everything looks different. Same channel, all the same videos. People are asking about that. Everything will be archived. Everything will be here, but we'll have a new name, new logo. It's going to be amazing. We will be the Israel Guys and talk about where we're going this week. No, I'm not going to give it away, but it's probably
for our own safety,
the most adventurous place we've gone yet. So it's going to be a blast. And
Go ahead and guess if you want. Yeah.
It's going to come out in a couple of weeks. So make sure you subscribe. You don't want to miss out. Guys, yes, we're talking about ice cream today. And you probably, if you haven't heard about this yet, you've been hiding under a rock somewhere. Maybe you've been so hot that you've been sitting in your house in the air conditioning. Maybe you haven't been eating ice cream because of the heat.
Look, can we just say
the rest
this?
of the world, but it's a heat wave here in Israel.
It's a great time for ice cream, but let's just go ahead and say it from the start, just in case somebody's about to click off. We need to make sure we do one thing before you do that. Don't buy Ben & Jerry's, okay? Just don't buy Ben & Jerry's.
Unless you're in Israel.
Unless you're in Israel.
Because
that's complicated.
We're supposed to buy Ben & Jerry's.
Yeah.
We'll explain it.
Don't confuse everybody right at the kickoff.
It.
If you live anywhere else in the world besides Israel, just stop buying Ben & Jerry's. They're anti-Semitic to the max. I'm talking about like crazy anti-Semitic. Stop that Ben & Jerry stuff. Go ahead. There's lots of other kinds of ice cream that you can buy. Everybody wants to eat ice cream. It's summertime. Yeah. Luke, before we get into the evils of that Ben & Jerry have fallen prey to, we need to talk about anti-Semitism. We need to set the tone because there's been a lot of misunderstanding about what in the world anti-Semitism is. The lines are being blurred crazy, and this is not a time in world history to not be sure of the definition of anti-Semitism. There's one solid definition of anti-Semitism, and it's even being confused here in Israel and the political left. Yes. We have leftists that are being very confused on the definition of anti-Semitism.
Yeah. Foreign Minister Yair Lapid, alternate prime minister, as in he'll be prime minister in about a year and a half.
Doubt it.
He actually said, maybe. The government did pass a budget.
Yeah, that was
so
good.
That's a step in the right direction. Yeah. We won't get into news right now. Yair Lapid said, quote, anti-Semitism exists everywhere. The anti-Semites weren't just in the Budapest ghetto. The anti-Semites were slave traders who threw chained slaves overboard into the ocean. The anti-Semites were the members of the Hutu tribe in Rwanda who massacred members of the Tutsi tribe. The anti-Semites are the Muslim extremists who killed 20 million fellow Muslims in the last decade. The anti-Semites are Islamic State and Boko Haram. The anti-Semites are people who beat to death young members of the LGBT community. End quote. Why is this so important? And no, we're not belittling the other horrific things that happen in the world. But this is a high-ranking member of Israel's government redefining the definition of anti-Semitism.
Luke, this is very important that we understand the differences because there is, about 4,000 years of Jewish history in the planet right now, and we can't lose Jewishness at this point. There's a specific hate in the world, and it's defined as anti-Semitism, and it's directed to Jews. Here's just so we don't, this is not mine and your definition. Most people trust the Oxford definition. It says hostility or prejudice against Jewish people. Okay, I didn't make that up, right? Webster, if people don't believe Oxford, let's just look at Merriam-Webster. Feeling or showing hostility towards or discrimination against Jews as a cultural, racial, or ethnic group. Well, pretty clear.
Can we make this
Jewish?
Can we make this like a little bit even simpler?
Yeah.
Hate Jews. If you hate Jews, that is anti-Semitism. And what Yair Lapid was trying to do was just like broaden the spectrum. If you hate anybody, if the evils in the world, it all falls under that because we're all big one happy family. Well, unfortunately, anti-Semitism is a very real, very, very specific thing. And like you go to Europe, even in the United States, places of the world, anti-Semitism levels are like close to what they were at the time of the Holocaust when 6 million Jews were murdered. So it's not something that we have the room to be redefining the definition on.
Luke, there's something I really want to do, and this is really important. Guys, stay tuned. Like, this is crazy. This is examples right now of anti-Semitism that's happening in the world. You hear apartheid state, you hear Israel, the apartheid state. That's straight up anti-Semitism. You don't know the fact. This is fact.
We're going to make a video about this, by the way.
Equal rights are afforded to Israeli Arabs just like Israeli Jews.
Right.
There's no difference when it comes to the laws. You may hear a bunch of crazy stuff out there, but that's fact. This is a Jewish democratic state of Israel. That's fact. Okay, so that's just absolutely far-fetched lies about a apartheid state. It's called anti-Semitism, Jew hatred. Okay, it's Israel said to be participating in ethnic cleansing, which is this is like straight up anti-Semitism. That's just not true at all. And in fact, the Arab
population is growing, maybe
increasing. How does that happen if Israel is like ethnically cleansing the Arab population? Not true.
Ethnic cleansing is literally like just killing off a people group or deporting them, shipping them off somewhere. That's not happening at all. Period.
Look, this one I find particularly disturbing is they say that the IDF, you hear this all the time, it says the IDF is using disproportionate force. They also call the IDF the occupation forces. That's just crazy. Do you know that the IDF is the most moral army in the entire world? There's not another army in the world that holds a candle to the IDF. Okay, once again, that's fact. We're talking facts here. This is just straight up facts. Most moral army in the world. You can't get better than that. Israel's the only country that some reason people around the world say doesn't have a right to exist. We'll get into that just more in a little bit. That's called anti-Semitism right there. If there's just one country in the world that doesn't have the right to exist, and when Iran can say that openly and not be taken off Facebook or whatever else, that's anti-Semitism. And it's not just against anybody in the world. It's against Jews. That's the focus. Luke, to bring it up to date, the Olympics. There's countries in the world that wouldn't participate because it was Jews.
An Olympic athlete that made it all the way to the Olympics, and then all of a sudden you find out you're going to compete against an Israeli, and you go, you know what, I'm good. I'm going to drop out. It's ridiculous.
There's only Israel, Luke, that comes to. And that's, I wanted to run through this because that's anti-Semitism in its finest form. And we're not redefining it now. We've got a lot of history, and it's not time to redefine what anti-Semitism is. What we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about BDS.
Yeah.
BDS is horrific, and it's pretty much that's like
stands for boycott, divestment, and sanctions.
This is the cutting edge anti-Semitism of today. This is boycotting Israel.
And we have actually a video we're going to play in 2 seconds here by the actual founder of the BDS movement, and it goes way, way, way worse, way deeper than just saying I don't want to buy an Israeli product. It is horrific.
Luke, I want to. Is there any other country in the world that people like they where there's human rights? I mean, we know that there's human rights faults all over the world, right? But only in Israel do they try to boycott Israel, to try to bend the arm, to try to say do this or do that. Like this is crazy. When there's human rights issues all over the world,
right?
It's like, for instance, Iran is loves the BDS movement, right? Well, that's just crazy if it's about human rights.
Yeah.
Because that just doesn't work. That just doesn't make any sense. Again, it's called anti-Semitism.
Yeah, so we have a video, if we can go ahead and pull that up, by Omar Barghouti, who is the co-founder of the BDS movement. And he does not spend his time, from what I've seen, talking about like ethical shortcomings or failings in Israel. He actually just talks about things like Israel doesn't have a right to exist. Let's watch that video now.
Palestinians and Arabs in general have never, will never recognize Israel as a Jewish state.
Most definitely we oppose a Jewish state in any part of Palestine.
The entire myth of Zionism is that the same people were expelled 2,000 years ago have a right today to go home.
Major powers around the world that were thought of as invincible collapsed. There's no reason to think why Israel cannot.
Israel is the only country on earth that maintains this divine right to exist. Hell no. No, they don't have a right to exist.
Okay, if you even had a thought in your mind before that BDS was a good, like, moral,
human rights,
ethical way to protest what you think is wrong in Israel or what you don't like about Israel, if you thought that was just a good way in your community to protest what's going on, think no further. The co-founder of the BDS movement actually says Israel does not have a right to exist. He says Israel should be wiped off the face of the map.
No right to exist.
That is what is behind the boycott, the BDS movement. And now we're going to talk about Ben and Jerry's. We're getting there. And
Luke, I got to say this real quick.
Yeah.
The BDS movement, this guy was a co-founder of. Obviously, he stated his intentions very clearly. Israel has no right to exist. How could you say that in broad daylight and then I don't know how. Why is there still a BDS movement with that kind of, that's the founder. Okay. But number one, 2021, their number one success of they put 16 successes that they've had in 2021. This that we're about to talk about is their number one success, Ben & Jerry's.
We'll be right back with the rest of the show. But first, did you know that in addition to the Joshua and Caleb Report show, we have an entire Joshua and Caleb network? Do you want to learn about the weekly Torah portion from a Jewish perspective? Join Christian Zionist Zach Waller and Orthodox Jewish Rabbi Yonadav Zar as they dive into the Torah portion every Thursday on the Heartland Connection. If you want to get to know the people, land, and traditions of Israel, Talking Israel, hosted by Tommy Waller and premiering every Monday, is the perfect show for you. Tommy is joined by inspiring guests from Israel who share powerful insights from the land and people of Israel every single week. If you're a reader, every Friday we publish a short, easy-to-read article on the Heartland Report. From the latest news from Israel, teachings based on the holidays, and biblical feasts or special stories from the Heartland, the Heartland Report is always filtered through a biblical and prophetic lens. You can get any or all of this content entirely for free on the Joshua and Caleb Network. You just have to go to joshuaandcaleb.com and sign up for the content of your choice, or just sign up for all of it. Don't settle for lies and negativity when it comes to Israel. Subscribe for free to the Joshua and Caleb Network and become a powerful, confident voice for Israel today. Just go to joshuaandcaleb.com and subscribe completely free today. Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I actually didn't know this because if you grow up in the South in the United States, I don't think Ben & Jerry's is quite as popular, but they're very popular all over the world. They're at least in the top 4 or 5 ice cream brands in the entire world. Some people rank them as number 1. What I have on here from one group said number 4. But anyways, big ice cream brand, right? Okay, on July 19th this year, the Ben & Jerry's ice cream brand, who is actually a subsidiary of the Unilever Group, announced, and I quote, "We believe it is inconsistent with our values for Ben & Jerry's ice cream to be sold in the occupied Palestinian territory. We have informed our licensee that we will not renew the Israeli license agreement when it expires at the end of next year." That's the end of 2022, which means, when it comes down to it, that they will not be selling ice cream in the quote-unquote West Bank anymore. They won't be selling it to Jews, and I'm assuming they won't be selling it to Palestinians either. And what you might not know is that there's stores here in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, where a Palestinian can walk in, a Jew can walk in, they can see the Ben & Jerry's ice cream freezer, they can choose what they want, they can buy it, they can take it home to their family, or enjoy it in the 100-degree plus weather that we're in right now. Well, no more by the end of 2022, right? So Ben & Jerry's was acquired by a company called Unilever out of the United Kingdom in 2000, but the ice cream company themselves gets to make most of the decisions about what they do. So to give Unilever the benefit of the doubt, the CEO, Alan Jope, in a letter said that he does not support the boycott, okay? But the decision was made by the board of directors for the Ben & Jerry's global ice cream brand, right? And as we're going to find out in a second, they have a big interest in social justice type of issues, even putting lots of money behind it. Okay?
Look, can I just say social justice issues? You and I shop at stores here in Judea and Samaria. And when we go there, there's like Jews and Arabs. Like you noted this, but I just want to make an exclamation point here. Literally, the Arabs of Judea and Samaria, when we go to Rami Levy, that's a big grocery store, there's not going to be Ben & Jerry's there. It's literally like the left is just like cutting off their own arm. It's like if they wanted to help the Palestinians, this is not the way to help. Like, just flat out not the way. And here's news, Luke. This guy, Omar guy, the CEO, well, he doesn't even live inside. He lives like in Israel proper and enjoys the joys of Western Israel. Went to university in Israel. Like, he's not helping the situation whatsoever. And actually taking ice cream flat, just straight out of the hands of his own so-called people here that want. There's really fact is it's just not helping absolutely anything.
No, well, you might be wondering though why is it important? If ice cream, if I don't want to sell my ice cream in Judea and Samaria, who cares, right? Well, okay, it is important, and this is why. Number one, Ben & Jerry's has a huge voice. I think a long time ago, like businesses and corporations, they kind of like it was like separation of business and social issues, right? Well, not anymore. Like. Businesses are very involved in social issues. Right. Ben & Jerry's has 8.6 million followers on Facebook and more than 500,000 followers on Twitter. So they have a big voice. Also, according to this, they're the 4th top-selling ice cream brand in the world. They operate in 39 countries and run over 200 dairy farms. And according to one estimate, 3.34 million Americans consumed 4 or more quarts in 2020. Okay, I got the founders of Ben & Jerry's on here who don't own the company anymore, but they actually, and I have I had the quote, but anyways, they don't. Oh, here we go. They don't have control or say over what Ben & Jerry's does anymore because they sold the company. But they actually called the decision to boycott sales to the West Bank one of the most important the company has made in its 43-year history. Unfortunately, these men are Jews, but they do not support Jewish growth in Judea and Samaria. Okay, now we have to talk about Ben & Jerry's charitable work.
You know what? Look, when you just say charity, did you just get like warm fuzzies all already when you said charity?
No.
That's what I think. When I think charities, I think like good things to help people.
By the way, you're going to be shocked and horrified by this, okay? So just hold tight. Like this, you really need to know this. And don't get lost in the details here. Ben & Jerry's Foundation has doled out more than $100,000 in the last 2 years to the Oakland Institute think tank, founded by Palestinian land rights activist Anuradaha Mittal. I'm just going to call her Mittal now because I don't know if I got her name right. Mittal is also chair of the ice cream company's board and vice president of the Ben & Jerry's Foundation. She is actually, she was instrumental in, and as I understand it, one of the architects to getting the boycott passed. Yeah. Right? To getting the company to make that decision. We're going to show a couple tweets from Mittal right now. So just, incidentally, she is on the board that makes decisions for Ben & Jerry's Global, and she's also...
charity.
And she's also part of this Oakland Institute think tank, and she happens to be a Palestinian rights activist. Okay?
Yeah.
It gets worse. Yeah. Just hang on. A couple tweets from Mittal. First one, quote, "We unequivocally support the decision of the company to end business in the occupied territories, which the international community, including the United Nations, has deemed an illegal occupation." If you want to know more about that, go back a couple videos ago. We made an extensive video about that topic. Second tweet, if we can pull those up as well on the screen. Quote, "I am proud of Ben & Jerry's for taking a stance to end sale of its ice cream in the Palestinian occupied territory. This action is not anti-Semitic. I am not anti-Semitic. The vile hate that has been thrown at me does not intimidate me. Please work for peace, not hatred." And I just want to read one line from another tweet. She said, "It's simple. Palestinians are entitled to basic human rights. Do those human rights include taking their ice cream away from them, or saying that they should not be allowed to shop in the same stores as Jews? Do those human rights include saying Palestinians are not entitled to a good, high-paying job in the same factory with Israeli Jews, with the same benefits, the same opportunities, the same vacations, the same salaries. We could go on and on. But
Luke, Omar, I just got to say, Omar had something a little bit rough here, where obviously Omar's number one.
This is the founder of BDS.
Omar,
yeah.
The co-founder of BDS, has something off with Mital here. Well, obviously, Mital's basically Omar's number one success story of 2021,
right?
Where he convinces Mital, like BDS, yes, boycott the Judea and Samaria Jews, right? Well, there's just like this big elephant in the room that just needs to be crushed here, because please work for peace and not hate. Let's pull up Omar 1 second here. Please work for peace and not hate. Just remember that as we pull up Omar. Peace and not hate.
Play that video one more
Omar,
time.
are you ready? Peace and not hate. Omar, let's hear it from Omar himself about this, how just the BDS movement is just about peace and not about hate.
Israel is the only country on earth that maintains this divine right to exist. Hell no. No, they don't have a right to exist.
Yeah.
Hold on 1 second. Please work for peace, not hatred.
So kill all the Jews, is that supposed to be the peace slogan? Like,
Mital,
wait,
maybe you should pick up the phone and call Omar.
Mital, call Omar right now. I think you guys have had a miscommunication.
Because Mital, like you were saying, is Omar's number one success story for 2021.
Yeah. Okay.
So y'all need to get together here. Come on, Mital and Omar, get it together.
This is not
okay. We got to keep going here because Mital has been. I'm sorry, her first name is very hard to say, but anyways, on the board of the Ben & Jerry's Global. Yeah. Mital has long been a fierce critic of Israel's policy in the region. Her think tank, which includes another executive of Ben & Jerry's, supported... So we got a lot of mixing here, right?
Yeah,
supported a controversial human rights group in the West Bank in 2017 with cash from Ben & Jerry's charitable foundation. Mm-hmm. This is Badil Resource Center for Palestinian Residency and Refugee Rights. That's a long name. This is a human rights group in the West Bank. They received a grant of $3,000 from the Ben & Jerry's Foundation in 2017. Last year, the European Union, of all organizations, actually pulled nearly $2 million worth of funding from this same human rights group after it refused to sign an anti-terror clause in its funding contract. You know what that clause said? The clause stated that none of those funds would be diverted to members of terrorist organizations such as the military wings of Hamas and Hezbollah. Okay? If you're lost at this point, let's make it real simple. Okay? Ben & Jerry's, who their executives are also on these these think tanks about the Palestinians here. Ben & Jerry's is supporting this human rights group in the West Bank. The human rights group refused to sign a contract or a clause saying that the funding that they received would not be used for Hamas and Hezbollah, known terrorist organizations, and Ben & Jerry's gave them money anyways. Okay?
That should make you irate.
Enough?
Is that enough? Okay, we said it in the beginning, Luke. Don't buy Ben & Jerry's. Do you believe us now? If you don't believe us, okay.
Okay, one last thing. Because it's actually possible that what Ben & Jerry's has done is illegal in the United States. Okay, in a July 20th article in the Washington Post, Daniel Pomerantz from Honest Reporting, the CEO of Honest Reporting, great group here in Israel, and we actually use them as a source lots of times. He wrote an article and said that, and he's an expert in international law, he said that boycotts have traditionally played an important role in free speech and social justice in the U.S. However, he cautioned against allowing private companies to dictate foreign policy through boycotts. Yep. And under the United States Constitution, as well as numerous acts of Congress and state laws, prohibit American individuals and corporations from participating in boycotts against foreign countries. In short, a private boycott against a foreign government is not free speech, like a domestic boycott, like the civil rights movement, but rather a tool of statecraft that, like war, is reserved to the federal government alone. So, already happening, lawmakers in 5 U.S. states are actually examining whether and I think Florida and Texas are 2 of them, if I'm correct, and maybe Oklahoma. They're examining whether Ben & Jerry's is actually breaching legislation that was passed to combat the BDS movement, and there's 34 states that have anti-BDS legislation. So if it is found that Ben & Jerry's is in violation of those, then they could face some serious consequences.
Luke, at the end of the week, I should be talking. I just want to encourage everybody. You can make a difference. Contact your people in America, your senators, your governors, whatever. I'm going to be talking to my governor at the end of this week. We're going to do that. You know what? So do that. There is things you can do.
Well, I mean, 34 out of 50 states is a lot. They already have this anti-BDS legislation. If they hear from their constituents, and we already have like Texas and Oklahoma and Florida taking action, if they're hearing from people supporting them, they're going to put it more at the top of the list. Yeah. So Unilever, who is the parent company for Ben & Jerry's, could actually face legal action. If they're found to be in violation, they could be subject to significant fines, tax consequences, or even criminal action. Yeah. And they could risk losing their ability to do business in the United States. This is the 4th largest ice cream brand in the world. So this is important. Very important. So what do you have to do? You can call your senator, call your representative. Also, go buy a different ice cream brand. Just go ahead and enjoy it. Don't enjoy Ben & Jerry's right now. Oh, we forgot to tell people why, though. If you're in Israel, it is good.
That's right.
Okay, this is why. Ben & Jerry's is not imported to Israel. They actually have a factory that employs, I think, about 160 people here in Israel. And the ice cream is produced here. The CEO has been fighting this boycott for several years, and he is determined to keep fighting it. He said, the license isn't running out to 2022, and he said, if Ben & Jerry's sees that we have a lot of people buying the product, which is supporting Israelis, Arabs, and Jews, I'm sure, here in Israel, giving them a good wage, he said that maybe we can reverse this decision. The CEO of Ben & Jerry's here in Israel is determined to reverse this decision. So if you're in Israel, you can buy Ben & Jerry's and enjoy it. But if you're outside Israel, you need to make your statement.
Be clear. Boycott Ben & Jerry's. They're standing for horrific anti-Semitic action against Israel. It's unacceptable. You heard it from the BDS guy himself. Israel has no right to exist? Okay. Let's just start calling it out right now. If it comes to companies or people, let's just try to erase this right now. That is inconceivable that someone could even say that a entire nation needs to be wiped off the globe. Yep. That just gets under my skin. That is unacceptable. Get rid of the ice cream.
Guys, let us know what you think down in the comments. All of our source links are in the description below. You can do more research yourself. Make sure you subscribe, because the very next video coming out on this channel, by the time it comes to you, this channel will be called The Israel Guy. So you don't want to miss out. Hit subscribe today. Leave us a comment. In the meantime, be strong, be courageous, and be the voice of Joshua and Caleb in your generation.
I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Hi guys, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. We also have tons more incredible content straight from Israel's heartland, which you can find completely free at joshuaandcaleb.com. If you're interested in signing up for a life-changing volunteer program in Israel's heartland, you can go to serveisrael.com. We host Christians from all over the world to help plant trees, harvest grapes, prune vines, and basically help farmers all over Judea and Samaria, all while experiencing the land and people of Israel in a way that you're never going to get on a 10-day tour. Just go to serveisrael.com to find out more information.